Hello, everyone, and welcome. It's day 24 since we've gone live every single day since the lockdown has happened. This is the CuppaChino Club's social TV channel where we keep in touch with our community and with you, the viewer. I'm your host, Bridgetti Limbanda from Cape Town in South Africa, and a hearty warm welcome to my co host, Viola Manuel. Viola, how are you today?
Good, Brigetti, good. Day 24, it's seemed to be going much quicker with phase two. I'm not quite sure why. It's just, as soon as you just sort of get used to things, we were all psychologically preparing ourselves for 21 days. And then the news of the sort of phase two kicked in. And to me, phase two just seems to be going so quickly. 24, day 24. We've been through three days of our next 14, in terms of phase two. So yeah, it's been a good day. Good, Sundays, nice and, just a different day for us at home. Lots of cooking, lots of eating, lots more eating. So it's Sunday, it's
And
just
to me,
we
phase
take
two just
that
seems
day
to be
of
going so
resting
quickly.
quite
24.
seriously.
Oh, absolutely. And we do need some downtime. There's no doubt that the lockdown and the whole COVID-19 episode is taking its toll on people locally and internationally. It's a lot on our minds, a lot to think about. Every single thing we do and say um, is affected by the current situation. People are
Yeah.
starting to get very anxious about the economy, about job security, about food security. One thing our government's been very good about is encouraging people not to hoard and reassuring us that we've got enough food. It's the one thing people don't have to be concerned about. Having said that, I do understand that a lot of people are concerned about getting the food into their own homes because
Yeah.
the availability of food has got nothing to do with the affordability of food. Those are two completely separate issues. And so I think, for a lot of households, especially ones where there's an entrepreneur in the home, a single income family, there's all kinds of scenarios where people are dependent on their daily grind for making ends meet for that day. And so one can understand that 24 days into this lockdown, there are a lot of concerns
Yeah.
about it.
There's a lot of concern, and of course, also the whole sort of new behaviors that go with, the food coming into your home, having to wash it, and just make sure that you sanitize as much as you can. Um, that's really been, I think, a challenge because the first thing you want to do is just sort of grab some of the fruit and eat it, and you've got to make sure that the kids understand that they need to wash it and sort it out much more now than before. So yeah, there's a whole new set of behaviors in terms of almost everything in our homes. So it's a big change, very very big change for most of us.
It's inextricably changed our behavior in so many ways. The way that we shop, the way that we do business. And an interesting thing that I saw on IOL today, that's also hugely impacted us as human beings and society, is the fact that they've now discovered that funerals, even though funerals are limited to 50 persons at a time in South Africa, it's become a hotspot for picking up the virus. And the
Yes.
reason for that is that it's so natural for you to want to show sympathy by means of hugging,
Yes.
kissing, holding
Yes.
on to each other for comfort. I think
Yes.
it would almost feel wrong to be at a funeral and not want to hug bereaved ones or family. um, and I think that's an incredibly challenging situation to be at a
Yeah.
funeral and to practice this kind of physical distancing when
Yeah.
all you want to do is just hold on to someone for dear life.
Correct. Correct. And I mean, it's no amount of phone calls, There's very little technology that's going to replace the warmth and comfort of a hug. And of course the 50 people that you do sort of allocate a permit to. I think it's permits that people have to have. The 50 that you're allocating permits to are the people who knew the deceased well, are close to you, are close family members. So it even becomes more difficult not to go through the normal behaviors that we employ at a funeral. So I can understand that it must be an absolute nightmare for government to have to hand out these permits. And I think just for people to in that bereaved emotional state, still act responsibly. So funerals are so incredibly difficult now. And yeah, and it's, even if it's not even COVID related, you still have to practice the rules and guidelines set out by the Health Department of Health. In terms of laying your loved one to rest.
Oh, absolutely. Shall we run through where we are at currently in terms of statistics? I don't think we've really done this much in the
No,
show. We've focused a lot on the business aspects and how we can pivot, etc. But we've
yeah,
got an exciting week ahead of us, and I thought, maybe we should just run through some of the statistics of where we are at and
yeah.
see how we can take some positivity into the week that lies ahead. So we've got an infographic here, which I'm going to just put onto screen, and then we can perhaps just run through some of those figures.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't. Are you able to see some of those figures
I
there,
am.
Viola?
Yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, it seems that, of course, my eye immediately falls onto the Western Cape, just understanding that, Cape Town's where we're based. To see 205 recoveries is amazing. I'm very focused on the fact that, there's so many people that have recovered. I think it's about 903 in total now that have recovered. Um, in the Northern Cape, it's exciting to see that, basically all the cases they've had have recovered. The Northern Cape, Northwest, Mpumalanga, most of the smaller provinces, everybody's, they're sort of plowing a lot of resources into every situation and each case and really pushing hard for recoveries. So it's KwaZulu-Natal's quite high in terms of their deaths with 20, and so and Gauteng, of course, with six deaths. And the Western Cape, we've really been focusing on sort of there's been a few hotbeds. I think sort of just unusual hotbeds in the Western Cape, like the supermarkets, where they've now found COVID in 2 or 3 of the supermarkets in the Western Cape. So it's been a bit crazy down here.
Yes, it absolutely has been. And again, I think, one wants to emphasize the importance of wearing your cloth mask. Again, not the N95 mask. Wear cloth mask when you go to the
Yeah.
supermarket, and go to the supermarket with purpose. It's not a place
Yes.
to go and tear, as we said in Afrikaans. You
Yeah.
don't want to make
Absolutely.
it a gathering place where it's not a social event.
Correct.
Go there with purpose. Think about the people that are working there, the fact that they have families and that they also need to remain safe. And so it's not just about us or our own needs. We want to put the needs of other people ahead of us, especially, our frontline workers, which are the people who work in the supermarkets.
Absolutely. And I also just think, in terms of planning what you're going to do, and then the biggest one, which is a big challenge in my family now, is just to make do with what you have, and to start, really planning the supermarket trip, when the first few trips that I had to do in terms of shopping, and you get back and then somebody says, oh, but we don't have any salt. And I'm going like, you should have put it on the list. Now we're going to just not have salt for the next week because I'm not going out again before that. So yeah, I think it's a lot of planning and just working around it. But then again, also, like you're saying, Brigitte, just respecting the fact that the people who are in that store have families. They don't want to be put at any more risk than they need to be. So just respect that and show them, by the fact that you care. But I do see that a lot of the stores have now set up these sort of screens, like hard plastic screens between you and the cashier, which I think is amazing. And even the stores that I have had to go into, everybody's practicing the social distancing quite nicely.
Yes, I must say the innovation has been amazing.
Yeah,
I mean, our figures are still relatively low compared to the rest of the world in terms of
yeah,
the actual curve. Um, and, I still don't know if it's because we haven't done enough testing. I think we've got the figures here for um, the amount of tests that's been done. And I think, yeah, there we go.
it's
So we've had
108.
108,021, yeah. So that's a
Look,
fair amount of tests, but it's still relatively low.
yeah, it's still relatively no, and also just remember that the tests being conducted are it, I think it's important for us to remember now that those tests that are being conducted, they're trying to get out the results as quickly as they can. Remember now, if it's private, I think it's something like 750 rand for you to be tested. It's an expensive exercise. And then of course the other big challenge is with all the fake news on social media about people coming in and the test being contaminated, etc., etc. People just haven't made themselves available for testing either. So, the fake news has actually been so damaging to what it is we need to do. And I know that one of the big, in terms of the three-prong approach that the president announced when he announced the extension, one of the biggest things that he was talking about as well was just extending the testing and the impact of that, because it is so important. The more testing that they do, the greater the more relevant the data becomes.
Mm. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And then I noticed on Fin24, the economist Mike Schuessler said it's vital to the economy and people's livelihoods that government consider opening up as much of the economy as possible, as quickly as possible, but he says with as little risk as possible, because that's equally important.
Yeah,
And he says, yeah, he says, um, a kind of tongue-in-cheek comment. He says, "At this point, I don't know which airline or which hotel will be left standing after the lockdown if things continue in this way." So I think there's a lot of concern about the economy. I know that Tiger Brands, for example, had to close one of its largest bakeries in Durban
yeah,
because, as a precaution, mainly because one of the administrative staff tested positive. And then also Mediclinic in Morningside has also closed down its facility.
yeah. There's
So,
I think there's one of the big hospitals in Durban that's also closed down their facility because some of the nursing staff had tested positive. I think that's the biggest challenge for government at the moment and for the decision makers. It's really this whole thing. I mean, and every commentary on COVID and on the economy is saying exactly the same thing. How do you open up sectors of the economy so that people can still earn a living with as little risk as possible? Because, just to open up the economy is going to, unless we know more about where the hotbeds are, what's causing this, unless we are in a situation to have greater data and more understanding of the data and understanding of the behavior of this virus, understanding of the behavior of people in response to this lockdown, we actually can't even determine what the risks are. That's the whole, I think that's what makes it so incredibly difficult. We understand the economy, I think, reasonably well. Government understands the economy reasonably well. They know which sectors are high growth sectors, are job creators. They understand that aspect, I think, significantly. What we don't understand and what's the unknown is what exactly this risk is and how great a risk it is. Um, so I think those are the big conversations that, we spoke about it yesterday. Those are the conversations that are happening behind doors. Is, how do we create this balance, and how do you factor in the cost of a life? And it's okay to sort of have these conversations when it's quite far away from you, But if it's your newborn baby that's at risk, or your grandparents or parents that would be put at risk by opening up certain sectors of the economy, you're going to ask the government to make a decision in favor of extended lockdown or whatever their next phase will be.
You hit the nail on the head there. It's very easy for someone that's distant to try and make all these rules and regulations and decide what should and shouldn't happen. I know that sale of cigarettes and alcohol is a very hotly debated topic at the moment. But there's a lot of factors to consider, and so part of the suggestions are that I'm not speaking specifically about alcohol or cigarettes as well, because there's a whole new, an entire sort of issue around that
Mm,
with regards to health and safety. So not specifically around cigarettes and alcohol, but I think there's going to be a bigger push to sell more goods online and telephonically, because not
yes.
everybody, again, we did mention that not everyone is on the internet. So we could see some innovation in terms of people being able to make calls and order their groceries online. So
Yeah.
again, massive opportunities for innovation.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of the supermarkets have been sort of trying to meet everybody halfway, because initially that first week, I don't know if you tried to get a home delivery, but the delivery was only going to happen, 3 weeks. They had a backlog of 3 weeks. You were going to get your food in 3 weeks. Nobody was prepared to do that. So I know that there's some of the supermarkets where you can actually call in and give them your grocery list, and you pay for it, and they actually just hold your groceries, so you literally just sort of park the car, run in, get your groceries, and run back out, and of course do what you need to do with it at home. So again, I'm always concerned about having these conversations in these sort of what I call sanitized environments, where things are all very sanitized and everybody's playing like really nicely with each other, you know um, and then you sit down and you think about the people who are affected either way in terms of these decisions, and it becomes very difficult.
It absolutely is. Yes, I know. I tried to order online about a week ago, and the waiting list was also 3 weeks. And I thought, I can't wait 3 weeks for groceries. You
Correct.
know,
Correct, you
that is
can't, it's just
just
not practical.
too long. No,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah,
no.
so,
So
I do
somehow
know.
that process needs a bit more refining.
Yeah, but I do know that I've tried the process where you just literally call the supermarket that you're used to shopping at. You call that specific branch or specific location, um, and you give them your shopping list, and you sort of pay for it, and or you say, I'll bring you the exact change, and that's how it works. You literally go and give them your name, and you pick up the groceries, and that's a much safer way than actually walking down the aisles in that store. So yeah, it's so incredibly difficult.
I also read somewhere that, the way that these big malls are operating will also need to become more online, and room for innovation. Someone, I can't remember who it was, mentioned that they should start seeing themselves as online retailers as well. Um, you
Correct.
know, and possibly have a situation where you, even with when it comes to clothes and other items, is that you call in your order, and possibly this is where innovation comes in terms of video calling your clients,
Yeah.
so that you can kind of walk through the store with your WhatsApp or your FaceTime, show the client something and say, is this the item you want? Is that the color?
Yeah.
Do you have it in the size? And still be able to have that personal interaction with your
Yeah.
client via
But
video calling. And then, the client pays for it online, and they simply come and pick it up,
yeah.
so that it
um
minimizes physical contact. I'm,
yeah,
I'm just thinking out loud.
I must tell you though, it's made me think a lot. I've been reading a lot of stats around retail, because of course one of my businesses is in the retail space, and retail has dropped by 66%. And it makes me think, if in 1 month, what is it that we're doing without? We're not doing clothing shopping. We're not doing, buying socks and stuff like that. And you sit back and you think none of us are, really suffering because of it. So, do we spend, are we prioritizing correctly in terms of our spend, in terms of this disposable income that we have? And has this whole lockdown experience, I think, just educated us in terms of what we need to spend on, as opposed to what we just impulsively spend on. So I just think, yeah, there've been so many lessons and observations in this last few weeks of lockdown that have just, I think, when you sit and you really think about it, it sort of boggles one's mind.
I think, every day that passes by, I'm becoming more and more convinced that we are never going back to the way business was done before. This is, we are before our eyes, we're seeing this major shift, that distrust that people had about doing business online, I think has just in one foul swoop is gone because we had no other choice. We had to go online, and people are realizing it's actually okay. By the same token, I do want to mention that it has also opened up a new world for scammers,
Mm,
and it's heightened the importance of making sure that your security check and balances are in place. Do you have security on your computer? Companies who may have been a little bit um, slack about enforcing security, I think, are now becoming more aware of doing that. We all got used to this whole thing about bring your own device. Um, but what is the security measures around doing that? And I think now with the lockdown as well, many companies may not have had the opportunity to issue company devices in
yeah,
time because we didn't
yeah,
have time for that. And
yeah.
so people are having to work on their laptops. And I'm sure that some of the security staff must be pulling their hair out.
Yeah.
So what do we do? How do we
Yeah.
move forward? We've got to do something.
Yeah. Look, I don't know if you've read about it, but one of the parliamentary meetings on Zoom was actually interrupted with I think it was a lot of porn or something that was like thrown onto the screen while everybody was in the meeting. So, it's exactly what we discussed a few days ago. All these new technologies that we're adopting, they all, I think, vulnerable if you don't have good security. And with the lockdown having happened as quickly as it did, I don't think that was on top of everybody's mind. Everybody just wanted to be able to work from home. And so, everybody took their own devices in. Companies trusted employees to have up to date sort of, so security software, and a lot of employees didn't have that. So, it's just funny how our conversations keep going back to business, but it is such an important thing for us just to sit and look at how businesses are going to continue to operate. So security and getting the right software and investing in good software is absolutely imperative. You have to do it. You have to do it. You're not going to survive this, because exactly what you're saying, scammers and people who are going to look for opportunities to access your information are now going to have a absolute field day, because nobody's really focused on that. Everybody's just trying to get work done, trying to get their jobs done.
Oh, absolutely. So as we almost out of time, shall we run down through some of our exciting schedule for the
Yes,
week ahead?
please. Please. So on Tuesday, we're going to be having another conversation with Lisa and Tareen. If our viewers remember, we had them as our guests on the very first day and of lockdown, and they were the first guests on our show. And we spoke about the rights of employers and employees, and also just spoke about some of the trending questions coming through to their their relevant organizations. So what we have decided to do is just have a follow up with them. And just have continue that conversation and see how things have changed over the last or during phase one. So that's quite exciting. And then we're also planning to try and get in a representative from disaster management to just talk to us about how people are coping in the townships and how they are able to mitigate some of the risk as disaster management. And then we're also hoping to speak to someone senior in one of the labor federations just to find out how our workers coping with everything that's been going on, and how are the labor unions, either the labor federations, actually responding to some of the challenges now that have come up with businesses literally saying we can't afford to keep our workers on, and how they are responding to suggestions like the one that we spoke about. Is everybody prepared to take a 30% salary cut, and then we'll all be able to keep our jobs. So that's next week. Very exciting. And then the week after, if all goes well, we're going to be talking to some of the leadership in the energy space, specifically renewable energy, and just see how that industry was impacted. And then we're also going to try and follow the story on tracking COVID using water and how that's going. I know that that's your space, Brigetti, but that a lot of international reports are coming through that people are able to sort of check and track using water. And it would be interesting for us to be able to have a conversation with somebody to see how that's trending in South Africa at the moment. So lots of exciting shows. We've just realized now it's day 3 of phase 2. And we've got a lot to pack into there. So we'll try and make sure that all of those happen.
Absolutely. So lots to look forward to in the next 2 weeks.
Yes.
A huge big thank you to our live audience on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Periscope and Twitter. Always great to have you join us live. And if you're watching the show on the replay, thank you for catching the replay too. So from me, Brigetti Limbanda in Cape Town, it's goodbye for now, and we'll see you back again tomorrow.
Yes, thank you so much for watching the show, and thank you for your comments. It's always great to know that people are interacting with us, and just be safe, everybody, and just like I always say, just be as responsible. Be responsible. That's what we're asking for South Africans to be. So thanks to everybody watching, and thanks so much for tuning in. And Brigetti, you have a good evening. We'll chat soon.
Thank you, you too. And last warning, don't share fake news about the coronavirus. It's a punishable crime in South Africa. Be safe, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.